All right. When in doubt, go with your grandkids.
That's true.
Oh, my kids, my grandkids aren't quite there yet. 4.5 doesn't qualify.
I don't know, at the rate they pick up technology these days, Judge.
That's true. Well, they spent the night. I left her on her iPad when I came to work this morning.
No,
All right,
not
Mr. and
really.
Mrs. Marchand, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. Sarah and Tim, just kind of plant yourself. Don't go right in front of an open window. It's hard to see you. Oh, this will be good. Okay, we're going to call the matter of Larry White versus Timothy Marchand and Sarah Marchand. Mr. White is present. Mr. and Mrs. Marchand are present. This is file 221343. Also present is Jenna Bowder, who is in our next case. So I'm going to advise you both. Marchand's is a termination of tenancy. The Bowders is a non-payment of rent. You have the right to obtain counsel for representation in this matter. If you cannot afford an attorney, a legal aid attorney may be available to help you. You have a right to a trial by a jury or by the court. If the action is for non-payment of rent, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services or other agency may be able to provide emergency housing assistance. You do not need a judgment to receive that assistance, and summons and complaint from the court case are sufficient. If a plaintiff is agreeable, the Citizens Mediation Services, Inc. may be available as a possible source of case resolution. If both parties are agreeable to mediation, you can contact the court to set that up. If you reach an agreement with the plaintiff and a consent judgment is entered by the court, you would waive the rights listed above, but have the following additional rights. The judgment may not be enforced until 3 business days had passed. You could move to set aside the judgment within these 3 days if you misunderstood what you consented to or what you were waiving. Your motion to set aside the judgment would be set for a landlord-tenant hearing. However, if the judge does not find in your favor, the original judgment would stand. Meg, this case has got some wrinkles to it. This is filed as a termination of tenancy matter. Mr. and Mrs. White filed to terminate tenancy. However, you have a lease, which is from August 1st, 2023 to August 1st of 2024. So you're in a lease period. So you filed a termination of tenancy for not paying the rent. When they have a lease, they have a right to pay the rent. So that is an issue, unless you allege some other rationale for terminating the tenancy, which you haven't done. I've handled this apartment a number of times over the years. I'm sort of dumbfounded that Mr. and Mrs. Marchand, you would pay $1,350 a month to rent this apartment.
Right, yeah.
And secondly, how you thought you could afford $1,350 a month. I've handled a number of evictions out of this very place over the years. So let's break this down. Mr. White, you filed this as a termination of tenancy. Why are you terminating their tenancy?
Well, I made the mistake of listening to my heart instead of my head, but they came in saying that they could pay, and they had a caseworker, and then I guess they didn't meet those requirements to get that money or whatever. Mrs. Marchand said she was disabled. I let them in on they've only paid $500 since they've been there. I put $60,000 into the apartment and redid the whole house. I put a lot of time and money. So it's not the same house that you remember.
Yeah, I
Well,
think it
I'm
is.
glad to hear
I think
that.
it is.
Yeah.
All right, well, so you've been there since August. You've made one payment of $500. But you didn't do this right, Mr. White.
Okay.
If it's a non-payment of rent, you have to say how much the rent is. You filed to terminate their tenancy for not paying the rent. And you can't do that when they have a lease. Their lease is in effect from August 1st of 2023 to August 1st of 2024. So they have a lease. The rent is $1,350 per month. Mr. and Mrs. Marchand, how you ever thought you were going to be able to pay $1,350 per month rent is a
Because
mystery to me.
when he
Go ahead.
rented it to us, he said it was only gonna be 1,200. And with mine and Tim's
Wait.
both check, with everything included. Well, then he brought
Wait.
the lease here to the apartment and raised it to 1,350. And then now he gave us papers that we have to go share half of the electric.
Well, all right. Well,
Things
so
are
is that
cheap.
why you're just paying no rent at all? You've been there since
No,
August?
no,
We're just in over our
we
head.
got in a bind. I've been in the hospital with my back. I'm fixing to go have another back surgery. We got into a bind and
All right, well,
it wasn't our
Mr.
fault.
White, how much is the rent behind through October?
Minus the 500 they paid, it's $4,900
Through October?
with deposit.
All right,
Well,
well, the deposit is separate.
what about us cleaning this place?
All right, just a minute. Mr. White, you could use some legal advice.
Sure.
Or you should at least join the St. Joe County Landlord Tenant Association. I'm not sure how they do things in LaGrange County, but you're doing this on your own and you've got 1 foot in one bucket and 1 foot in the other. It's a non-payment of rent case. You didn't file it as a non-payment of rent case. But Mr. and Mrs. Marchand have been there since August. They have paid $500, nothing for September and nothing for October, and probably nothing coming from November.
And also, he didn't include on my caseworker sending 500 too.
I
Say
never
that
received
again?
I've never received anything from a caseworker.
Well, that ain't what she's saying.
Well, I'd be happy to show proof that a payment was sent.
No,
I did
All
not
right,
receive anything.
So,
And-
Sarah, we're gonna continue this matter.
Your Honor, may I?
Yes.
She's moved
Yes.
another family in. She's moved dog in. They've ran their water
We got no
so that
dog.
it causes trouble with the
We
other
don't have a
below.
dog. We take care of a dog.
Stop. I'll let you speak when he's done.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Does the lease say no pets? Mr. White?
Yes, but there's an extra fee for a pet, and a pet was never spoken about.
All right.
So
Now,
there's another $25 a month for that.
Mr. and Mrs. Marchand, you're a very poor tenant risk. You move somebody else in there allegedly, you got a dog in there, there's water issues, you're not paying the rent, you don't have the ability to pay the rent, and you're complaining about not getting credit for cleaning the apartment.
We got another place on the. We got another place on the third.
All right, have you made any effort to try to find another place to live?
Yes, but we can't
All right.
move into it until the 3rd.
All right, that might help this. I'm gonna continue this matter to next Friday, 10/27 at 10:40.
Now you ask him if we come up with the rent, that if we could stay.
Yes,
I do not
and
want.
that's-
I will do what the court says. I do not
all
wish
right, well,
them to
what the
continue
court
as my
says
tenant.
is you have a lease
Yes,
and you allege they're not paying their rent. And they have a right to pay the rent to come into compliance with the lease. If you wish to terminate their tenancy, you have to say a reason why you're terminating their tenancy. you've invested $60,000 in this investment. You might want to invest a couple $100 in having a lawyer help you with this.
Certainly.
You may not wish to have them as a tenant, but they have a lease. So yes, Mr. and Mrs. Marchand. Now you claim that DHS paid $7,500. Obviously, if Mr. White had received it, he would have acknowledged it. So
Yes, Your Honor.
but you guys can't afford to live here.
No.
And so maybe it's a much nicer apartment than it ever was. $1,350 is almost at the ceiling of St. Joseph County rents. There's not, I have a house on Thunderbird Drive on the lake that rents for $1,200 a month. So these are very high rents for our area. If you lived in New York City, you could rent a doghouse for $1,350 per month, but you can't afford to live there. So if you're planning to move, that'll be great.
Yes,
so
we are.
you will get 10 days from October 27th. So you would have until November 6th to move.
Okay.
Now, if you do move before that, you don't even need to come. When you move, you need to turn in your keys and give your forwarding address in writing within 4 days of your moving.
Right.
But you probably won't be out by next Friday. So we'll address this further next Friday morning. Have your grandson help you get logged in again, and we'll address it further. But if they get what they ask for, I'll try to pound a square peg into a round hole and call this a non-payment of rent case. You would have until November 6th, which is 10 days from October 27th to move out. So if you have a new place by the 3rd, maybe the problem will take care of itself. Now, that doesn't include money damages, Mr. White. Once they move out, you can sue them for money damages, either as part of this case, except I don't think you paid the fee for supplemental damages, or in small claims court.
I was just trying to get it re-rented.
Yeah.
Well, I don't blame you a bit.
Friggin'
If you can get $1,350, I guess more power to you. But as soon as I looked at this, I thought this was a desperation for the Marshands to find a place to live. I don't know how they thought they were going to be able to pay this much rent. And I don't think DHS would pay this high of a rent, but we'll address it further the next Friday at 10:40 a.m. So I'll see everybody then. Do you have any questions, Mr. and Mrs. Marchand?
No.
No, thank you.
All right, I'll see you then.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyway, Matt, why don't you go ahead and place your appearance on the record?
Thank you. This is appearance by Matthew Davidson on behalf of the plaintiff, Lorenzo, but he goes by Larry White.
Ms. Holderman, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, I don't want you to smoke while we're in this hearing.
I know that. I'm not.
Okay. We were here last week on October 20th, and Mr. White, your landlord, was here, and there were a number of issues. This was filed as a termination of tenancy, I believe. They want you to move. The lease expired. I think you only made one payment, and then you moved in another family, they allege, and then you moved in some pets, and you indicated you were trying to find a place to move to.
The
Have you had
third,
any
yeah.
success?
Yeah, we
You
got
had
a
any
place. We
success?
can't move. Can't
All
move
right,
it
very-
until the third.
Till when?
The third.
Oh, this will work out fine.
It'd be like, cause the 3rd, I think, is on Friday, and then the weekend, it'd be that following Monday.
All right, well, I'm gonna give you
Something
until that date, which is November 6th, to move. No money judgment is entered here. Now, when you do move, you need to turn in your keys and give your forwarding address in writing. Don't give me the address, but what town are you moving to?
Sturgis.
Well, you're certainly people of St. Joe County. You've lived in Three Rivers, White Pigeon, Centerville, Sturgis. Anyway, when you do move, you need to turn in the keys and give your forwarding address. I'm not
Yeah.
ordering right now that you pay any money. If there is a hearing regarding money, it will be on a future date, either in a small claims case or as part of this case. But at this point, they simply want you to vacate.
Okay.
Do you have any questions?
No.
All right, very good. Hopefully you're in there, you're out by the 6th, turn in the keys, and I'm glad you found some place to go.
Yeah.
All right, very good. Anything to add, Mr. Davidson?
No, thank you, Your Honor. I did file an amended complaint and it was served on them by Officer Morse.
Oh,
So
we got it.
they're aware of the appearance in the amended complaint.
All right, I was aware of it too, so I don't know why I didn't know that you weren't in here. But all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Your Honor.